Hello, and welcome back to the English Grammar course. This is Marian, your English teacher, and I'm excited to share this lesson with you today. Our topic is the past simple tense, and we will begin shortly after a quick review of our last topic, the present continuous. The most common use of the present continuous is to talk about something we are doing now. For example, I'm playing basketball. We also use the present continuous for the following reasons: to talk about future plans or arrangements. I'm running the marathon next week. To indicate something that is changing. The company is growing quickly. And to talk about something that happens again and again. It's always snowing in winter. To form affirmative sentences in the present continuous, we follow the structure subject plus the auxiliary verb to be, plus the present participle, which is any verb ending with the letters ing or ing. To form negative sentences in the present continuous, we use the construction subject, auxiliary verb to be, not present participle. And finally, to ask questions, we place the auxiliary to be at the beginning of the sentence and follow it with the subject and the present participle. So let's practice. Which sentence is correct? She's liking chocolate cake. She likes chocolate cake. The second sentence is correct. We do not use the present continuous with stative verbs, which include verbs of taste or opinion. Like is a stative verb. Therefore, we must use the present simple. Can you call me back? I'm drive to work right now. Can you call me back? I'm driving to work right now. The second sentence is correct. I'm driving to work right now. The verb drive needs to be in the present participle in order to be part of the present continuous. He is looking forward to meeting you. He are looking forward to meeting you. The first sentence is correct. The auxiliary verb to be must be in agreement with the subject, in this case, the pronoun he. He is, not he are. I am doing this right? Am I doing this right? The second sentence is correct. In questions, we must place the auxiliary verb before the subject. They aren't sleeping well. They aren't sleeping well. The second sentence is correct. There is the contraction of they are, and aren't is the contraction of are and not. Therefore, in the first sentence, we have the auxiliary be twice, which is not necessary. She's isn't running for president. She's not running for president. The second sentence is correct. Just like in the previous practice activity, we do not need the auxiliary verb to be twice. Is he going to work tomorrow? He is going to work tomorrow. The first sentence is correct. We always place the auxiliary verb before the subject in a question. Well done! Now we can move on with our lesson on the past simple tense. The past simple is used in 3 ways. To talk about an action that happened once in the past. I was at the cinema this evening. I saw him at the supermarket. We also use the past simple to talk about an action in the past that was finished or completed at an unspecified time. I lived in London for 5 years. This sentence means that I do not live in London now, but the sentence does not indicate when I stopped or when I finished living in London. I listened to that song a lot last winter. Finally, we use the past simple to talk about an action that happened regularly in the past. For example, I walked to work every day last year. We can also use the past simple with the phrases I wish or if only to express things that we want now in the present but are usually not possible. For example, I wish I lived in a warmer country. If only he stopped drinking so much. With the phrase I wish, we can use both past forms of the verb to be, was and were. For example, I wish I were taller. I wish I was taller. Both sentences are correct. Another example, Patrick wishes he were smarter. Patrick wishes he was smarter. Once again, both sentences are correct. Now, we form the past simple tense of regular verbs by adding ed to the end of the infinitive or base form of a verb. For example, talk. I talked. You talked. He, she, it talked. We talked. You talked. They talked. Notice how talked is not pronounced talked. Regular verbs in the past simple tense are pronounced with a t or a d sound at the end. Talked, liked, walked. Also notice that unlike the present simple, the ending of regular verbs in the past simple tense remain the same for all pronouns. For example, I talked to my sister yesterday. I liked your dress at the party last night. I called you this morning, but you didn't pick up. Now, there is a very long list of irregular verbs that are formed differently in the past simple, and we will look into these a little later in the lesson. Now, to form negative sentences in the past simple, we use the auxiliary verb did, which is the past tense of do. We follow the construction subject plus did not plus infinitive. For example, they did not go on holiday last summer. We can also contract did and not to form didn't. I didn't see you at the party. I didn't like chocolate when I was a child. To form questions in the past simple, we use the auxiliary verb did plus the subject plus an infinitive verb. For example, did she play basketball as a child? Did you move to this neighborhood recently? We can also ask questions in the past simple using question words. We place them before the auxiliary verb did, which is before the subject of the sentence. For example, when did you go to the gym? Where did you eat dinner last night? Well done! It's time for some practice. Can you fill in the gaps using the words in the box? Let's go! I walked to work last week. This sentence is affirmative or positive, and therefore we use the past simple of the verb walk. I didn't call my mom this week. This is a negative sentence, therefore we must use the negative contraction didn't, plus an infinitive verb, call. Did you want more time to finish shopping? This is a question in the past simple tense. Therefore, we begin the sentence with the auxiliary verb did, and we follow it with the subject, you, and the infinitive form of the verb want. When did you go to Spain last year? I repaired my shoes myself. I helped him clean up. I didn't like the way he talked to me. Great work! We're finished with this practice. Now let's take the time to dive deeper into irregular verbs. These are often difficult for English learners because there are no particular set rules on how to recognize them, but they simply need to be learned by heart. For example, make, made. I made pumpkin pie for Thanksgiving. The good news is that past simple verbs are the same for all pronouns, except with the verb to be. We conjugate to be in the past tense as follows. I was, you were, he, she, it was, we were, you were, they were. For example, I was angry. They were upset. Now let's take a look at some common irregular verbs used in the past tense. Drink, drank. I drank too much wine last night. Eat, ate. I ate a lot of candy when I was young. Drive, drove. I drove to California last Christmas. Begin, began. I began learning French last fall. Break, broke. I broke my arm while skiing. Read, read. I read this book twice last summer. You may notice that read and read have the same spelling. The way to know how to pronounce it will be based on the context of the sentence. In this example, we have the words last summer. Therefore, we know the sentence describes an action in the past. Therefore, we must read, I read this book twice last summer. Have, had. I had no toys as a child. Feel, felt. I felt great joy after my niece was born. Forget, forgot. I forgot to turn off all the lights. Get, got. I got to the bus stop right on time. Hear, heard. I heard you're moving to Tanzania. Give, gave. He gave her all his love, but she still left. Keep, kept. I kept losing my keys, so I bought a key ring. Pay, paid. He paid the bills on time. Leave, left. She left the door open for you. run, ran. My brother ran a marathon last year. Speak, spoke. I spoke good French when I was in school. Write, wrote. He wrote her a love song. Okay, enough examples for now. The list of irregular verbs is long. The best way to learn is by engaging your mind actively in the lesson, which means practice. We will be completing a series of activities, the last one being our usual task-based activity. So let's get started. Can you match these past simple tense verbs with their present simple forms? Win, won. Slide, slid. Sleep, slept. Spend, spent. Wake, woke. Think, thought. Swim, swam. Cut, cut. Throw, threw. Send, sent. Put, put. Let, let. Know, knew. Hurt, hurt. It's interesting to notice in this list of irregular verbs how many of them stay the same in the present and past simple tenses. Cut, put, let, hurt. It's also interesting to note that verbs that end with OW, like throw or know, are changed to EW in the past simple. Through, knew. Catch, caught. Draw, drew. Break, broke. Fight, fought. Build, built. Go, went. Blow, blew. Notice how blow also is changed to EW at the end in the past simple, but also the verb draw that ends with AW also got transformed to EW in the past simple tense. Steal, stole. Stand, stood. Send, sent. Tell, told. Wear, wore. Sing, sang. Spend, spent. Notice how send and spend both end with END and got changed to ENT when conjugated to the past simple tense. Sit, sat. Hold, held. Give, gave. Buy, bought. Fly, flew. Lose, lost. Come, came. Great work! We're finished with our first activity. Now let's move on to a gap fill one. Can you conjugate the verb into the past simple? I lost my phone. I broke my finger while boxing. It cost me $10. You dealt the cards at the poker game yesterday. She found a pretty necklace at the store. She was tired, so she sat down. They slept very well last night. He sang it very beautifully. He ate so much food. I wrote him a kind note to thank him. I took good care of him. She threw her bag to the ground in anger. I told you not to go there. Well done! That's the end of our second practice activity. Now time to move on to our task-based one. Here is the opening paragraph of a story called The Frog Prince by the Brothers Grimm. We are going to read this text together. Then you will have 3 minutes to identify all the verbs in the past simple tense. Ready, set, let's go. One fine evening, a young princess put on her bonnet and clogs and went out to take a walk by herself in a wood. And when she came to a cool spring of water that rose in the midst of it, she sat herself down to rest a while. Now, she had a golden ball in her hand, which was her favorite plaything, and she was always tossing it up into the air and catching it again as it fell. After a time, she threw it up so high that she missed catching it as it fell, and the ball bounded away and rolled along upon the ground, till at last it fell down into the spring. The princess looked into the spring after her ball, but it was very deep, so deep that she could not see the bottom of it. Then she began to bewail her loss and said, "Alas, if I could only get my ball again, I would give all my fine clothes and jewels and everything that I have in the world." All right, 3 minutes start now. Time's up. Now, in this text, we have a total of 18 verbs conjugated in the past simple tense. 4 of those verbs are regular verbs: missed, bounded, rolled, and looked. 14 of these verbs are irregular verbs: put, went, came, rose, sat, had, was, fell, threw, began, and said. The phrase underlined in pink that says, "She was always tossing," This is an example of the past continuous. In this case, was is used as an auxiliary verb and not as an action verb. We will be learning about the past continuous in our next lesson, but I just wanted to bring your attention to it as a bit of an introduction. All right, let's move on to review. The past simple tense is used in 3 ways. To describe an action that happened once in the past, I drove to work this morning. For an action in the past that was completed at an unspecified time, I was so excited to see the play. And to talk about an action that happened regularly in the past. I worked in London last year. To form the past simple of regular verbs, we simply add ed at the end of the infinitive form. I talked, you talked, she talked, he talked, it talked, we talked, you talked, they talked. For irregular verbs, the rule is they must be learned by heart. Finally, the verb to be, which is also irregular, but important to mention. We conjugated in the past simple as follows. I was, you were, she was, he was, it was, we were, you were, they were. To form negative sentences in the past simple, we use the construction subject plus did plus not plus infinitive. For example, my daughter did not want to go back to school. We can also contract did not as didn't. We didn't like that restaurant. To form questions in the past simple tense, we follow the structure did plus subject plus infinitive. For example, did you enjoy the concert? Did is the past auxiliary verb of do. You is the subject, and enjoy is an infinitive verb. Another example, did we win? Well done! Thank you for sticking with me through yet another lesson of the English grammar course. I hope you had fun today, and I look forward to our next class. See you soon!